Booyah, and it's time for the Game Sports Show. It is your host, David McCaig Jr., bringing you another special edition upload powered by the Game Entertainment and Media and sponsored by Little Caesars Pizza. Now, getting to our Little Caesars Special Edition co-host here for tonight's upload, you know him by now. He's a former professional hockey player of over 1,000 games, and he's a hockey analyst for the Game Entertainment and Media. Brendan Brooks. Brooksy, how's it going, pal?
It's going good, man. It's really good to be back. I missed a few, and I'm really excited for the show today.
Definitely. It's always exciting to do these uploads and very excited about this special edition guest. Now let's get to that special edition guest. This guest was drafted in the second round, 47th overall in the 1993 NHL draft for the Montreal Canadiens. And previous to being drafted to the National Hockey League and playing professional hockey, he suited up for the Sudbury Wolves in the Ontario Hockey League for 3 seasons. And at the professional level, he played over 800 games between the NHL, AHL, and IHL, 287 games in the NHL between the Canadiens, Blues, Predators, Sabres, and Canucks and Flyers, where he tallied 10 goals and 25 assists for 35 points with 201 penalty in minutes. He also played 20 NHL playoff games between Montreal, Buffalo, and Vancouver. This fella participated in 3 AHL All-Star games and also played in the international level representing his country for the United States at the World Junior Hockey Championships in the 1994-1995 season. In connection to playing, he also got into the coaching ranks briefly after his retirement, and this guy was certainly a well-known and liked guy around the rink and outside the rink. And fun fact, for 2007 NHL All-Star game, he registered over 550,000 votes to participate in starts in the NHL All-Star game. And heck, there's even t-shirts made for this. Vote for Rory, which if it was now, it'd probably be called hashtag Vote for Rory. But I'm sure we'll dive into that as that all happened when he was in Vancouver. Now, going with a different kind of segue for our show with introducing our guests, we're going to jump right into a topic following the introduction. And you may have seen the title, but introducing him now, former NHL D-man, Rory Fitzpatrick. Rory, welcome to the show, man. Very excited to have you on. Now, after playing in obviously Major Junior, I want to dive right into right now. Essentially, this is a bit sooner than anticipated. And this is usually Brooksy's topic, but I'm going to take his thunder today a little.
Yeah, you always steal it, but it's okay.
The draft day. Okay, this is actually a well-known topic that we talk about a lot on the show, and we were so curious. We had a previous guest, one of our first special edition guests that aren't even counted on these episodes on our websites back in the archives with some of the older guests that we haven't counted, as I mentioned, where the draft story originated. So we've had stories about people that are drafted, undrafted. I'm curious to know yours, because obviously being one of the top 2 rounds, everyone's draft day has a story. Okay, there's a weird coach, there's a weird GM meeting, there's a weird phone call, or maybe there isn't for you, or maybe you just got your name called and you were tearing up and you hugged your family and it was a generic one. Nonetheless, I want to know the story of the draft for Rory Fitzpatrick. What happened that day, and what was going through your mind? Where were you? All the fun stuff.
Yeah, so this was, from being from Rochester, New York, all this is pretty new to me and my family. So we were lucky enough to have it in Canada. And I say that just because, the Canadiens packed the arenas up there for the draft. It's loud, it's exciting. And it was in Quebec City, which is an amazing city to be 18 years old in. So, I think the whole draft was pretty funny for me. I was, as a North American skater, I was ranked, fairly high. So we were involved with all the pre-draft interviews and stuff, and they had it at the mall. I don't know if you've been to Quebec City, where the mall with the roller coaster is. And
actually have. Yeah.
So I was, part of that pre-draft interviews and everything. Not that I was one of the ones they were looking for, but as I'm sitting in the mall there waiting to be interviewed, I can see my family on the roller coaster. So you could tell that they were, in awe of more than just the draft. So they were excited to be in a mall with a roller coaster. But it was at the Colisee. There was no air conditioning. It was very hot. And the Montreal first round draft pick was Saku Koivu, who was not in attendance. So when my name was called for the Montreal Canadiens, I was heavily booed by the Quebec Nordique fans. So that was a little bit of a shocker, and fun at the same time. And then, afterwards, I was just blown away by the attention of the media from Montreal, especially without Saku being in person at the draft. The press coverage was overwhelming for me personally. So it was a great experience for me and my family. We had so much fun with it, probably a little different fun than most hockey players, especially Canadians who, are used to this experience. But I love that it was in Canada. I love that it was in Quebec, and I didn't love being booed, but it was a fun time, and definitely a day I'll never forget.
Now, did you know that this was going to be Montreal right from the bat, or did you have some other teams that were showing a lot of interest, some phone calls, or was Montreal it and you knew that this was going to happen?
No, actually, Montreal was one of the only teams I had not spoken to. So I had interviewed, with probably 20 teams, and, I don't remember how many there were in the league. I think 24 to 26. I think Tampa Bay maybe, and someone else were just coming in. So they were one of the teams I had not spoken to. So I didn't expect them to be one of the teams that picked me. And actually, I'm drawing a blank on the guy's name. He's a Canadian icon. He was the only one to tell me that I was going to be drafted by Montreal. And I didn't believe him. And he was right. And I'm trying to think of what his name is now. But he's been traveling around Ontario and all over Canada for a long time. Says he's a scout, but he's just a guy that's around the rinks.
What are some teams he played for? See if we can have a little trivia while we have the interview.
So he didn't play for anybody, but he's always got someone's jacket on, junior team, and I can't believe I cannot remember this guy's name at this time, but
he was a rink rat.
Yeah.
The rink rat.
He came up to me, and he's like I said, he's pretty much a vagabond around the ice rinks. He told me Montreal was going to draft me. He said first round, so he was wrong on that, but he was right, and he was the only one that had Montreal in the sights.
You see that the big thing was you got drafted, and you're a New York guy, obviously. All right, so I imagine your time around the rinks it could have been was Rangers, Islanders. I know in the 80s the Islanders were obviously the Islanders. Okay, they won 4 Stanley Cups. They were in the pride, bossy, the guys that's on that team, fantastic hockey team. Was that kind of a hope for you? Was like, you know what? No offense to Montreal, because you're happy to get drafted anywhere you play, right? Yeah. But was there like a little bit of like, I would like to be on the Rangers, or you know what? I'd like to be on the Islanders, or even the Devils, right? Because that's still kind of pretty close to home for you.
Yeah, not really. Obviously, I think there was, San Jose was just coming to the league. I thought that would be great to play in California and stuff. But I grew up with Mike Bossy and Billy Smith. I'm closer to Buffalo, so.
Oh yes, Buffalo.
But there was definitely not any. I just wanted to get drafted. I'll be honest. And work it out later. I didn't, like I said, I didn't think I'd be drafted to a Canadian team just by odds, but. When I was drafted by Montreal, it's such a big deal. It's, for us in the States, we compare it to the Yankees. And, I don't know if that offends you, Ontario guys there with Toronto.
Oh, God.
I don't know if you guys
no comment
from Toronto, but everybody else in Ontario. So, so it was a big deal to be drafted by Montreal. And it really was, like I said, a big deal for us. And I was glad. I grew up a Bruins fan as well. So, big hug for you, Ontario guys. But yeah, so just getting drafted was it. Obviously, I probably wouldn't have picked Montreal, in the top 10, but I would, if I could do it all over again, they'd be my first pick to get drafted again. And so.
See, it's still a good story. Okay. You may, I don't know if you had any weird GM or scouts come up to you and like throw an apple at your head like they had to on a couple attendees that I heard, or Mike Zigomanis had a good one where they had 10 people in a room at San Jose and they mentioned, hey, Kate, talk about the person beside you and say what you hate about them. So this is a room full of
a lot of weird things. San Jose, I think, had they wanted to see your backside to see how developed you were for your skating. I think that would get you fired today. But
oh yeah, definitely.
yeah, but no, the weirdest thing for me, I think Washington Capitals had us take a major test that took a couple hours to do. And I don't even know what the point of it was. Probably some sort of character test or stuff. But San Jose flew a whole bunch of us out to Minnesota and put us through like a 3-day mini camp in the middle of the woods. So yeah, a lot of different things, and some of the questions in the interviews can be a little odd. I'm sure most of the questions get about 90% of the same answers, so I think they have to try to dig for something that's gonna throw you off. But San Jose was one of the weirder ones, and so was Washington Capitals at the time.
I would have just put a big fucking X through the sheet with the Capitals and said, fuck you. Drafted first overall. After you write that.
I think for Washington, there was I think there was 3 or 4 of us in a hotel room, and I won't say the guy's name, but he was a very high draft pick off the Wolves. And he ended up having to use the bathroom midway through the test. So we're in this scout's small hotel room filling out a test, and he goes in and just kills the bathroom for 10 minutes and comes out. The rest of us couldn't stop laughing. He was absolutely embarrassed. But yeah, so we had to take the test the rest of the time smelling like shit in the hotel room.
Shitty test, if you will.
Oh no.
Unintended.
Oh no.
Yeah.
But nice. Well, I want to get back, to end the NHL here, and your the beginning of your NHL career. As a 20-year-old, I saw that you had 3 different coaches that come in your first year, and I just want to know what that was like. Having it's a lot when you're just getting used to a coach, then a new one comes in, then a new one, and I'm just curious about that experience for yourself, and then what it was like for the first time putting on that jersey and making it with the big club.
Yeah, so Montreal had just won they won the Stanley Cup the year before I was drafted, and by the time I got there, things were getting a little bit crazy. So I was in the minors when the whole Patrick Waugh thing went down, and was called up just a few weeks after, I think, of that experience. So when I got there, it was an interesting environment, I think, and brand new coach, someone that hadn't coached in the NHL before. So it was interesting. I'll say that at the very least. But I think it was a very emotional time in Montreal. They were closing the Montreal Forum, opening up the Bell Center. So there was a lot of adjustments to make, but Montreal is, one hell of a place to play hockey in. So my first game was actually in Chicago, which is another fantastic place to play in. They stand and scream for the national anthem, and you're standing on the blue line or on the bench, and you're just blown away by
Shivers.
it. Yeah, shivers, and then you got to go out and play against Bob Probert. So shivers didn't stop anytime soon. But yeah, so yeah, my first year in Montreal, the whole experience was amazing. The amount of old timers and Hall of Famers that were around due to the Montreal Forum closing was incredible. Our bench with Mario Tremblay and Schutt and so many other Hall of Famers was a whole interesting experience as well. So yeah, just amazing. Everything about it was fantastic. And again, I wish Patrick Waugh hadn't been traded and got to play with him and stuff like that. But it was fantastic to be a part of that experience. Montreal Forum closing.
That trade is iconic. Literally walking down the bench, telling the owner, I believe it was, and saying, "Get me the fuck out of here." Like, I'm done. I'm out. And then the fans. Never been a fan of the fans yelling at the goalie for finally making a save. And I honestly think Patrick Waugh, given who he was, especially if he wants to react that way, the fans go nuts. Okay. Like, do what you want to do.
Yeah. I only played with him for some preseason games and some training camps, but he is in the category of, the Brett Hulls and the guys that just say what they want to say, and they can say it, and they have that power, and they back it up. He was one of those guys that said what he wanted to say, and earned that right as well to do that. So that didn't surprise me at all. I think that I'm surprised it didn't go the other way, and the coach was the one to go. But
that's what I would have thought.
He kind of had that power, but it worked out well for him in the end. He was able to go win the Stanley Cup that year and had the last laugh.
Legendary team, Colorado. That team had they have one of the best Stanley Cup moments in my history. I think Ray Bourque Stanley Cup moment might be my favorite Stanley Cup moment of all time. See, I'm a Leaf fan. I don't really have any Stanley Cup moments. So you know what? There's none to cheer about anyways. But now, Brooksy, and you guys have familiarity kind of with this team based on the farm system. And don't say it yet, but I'm not saying the farm system, the team. But you got dealt to St. Louis. And if I remember correctly from looking at it, Pierre Turgeon went the other way, who obviously was the first overall pick to Buffalo. And he was the first overall pick to Buffalo, too. Fun fact. I just know that from basic trivia cards. For some reason, I have useless memory.
Of course you do.
Useless spot in my brain. But obviously a well-known player going over to Montreal after, and you get moved over to St. Louis. And between St. Louis and even going into Nashville, like before you kind of entered Buffalo, there was a lot of grinding out where you got dealt to the Blues, and obviously you played some time in the American Hockey League. Then you had time in Nashville. So I kind of want to dive into all of that in one here. The first, with the trade to St. Louis, how'd you find that out? And before everything kind of went together in Buffalo for you, which I think was around 01 or 02, I believe is when you got in there, like to get on the roster more full time, the grinding out that you had to do to get back into the National Hockey League, how were you able to keep a clear mindset? So those are the two questions. How'd you find out about the trade, and how the hell did you keep your mind clear? Because nowadays, if a youth had to go through that, they're done. They're going overseas and partying in Switzerland.
Yeah. So the first part, obviously, it's a time before cell phones and emails and all that stuff. So we were actually boarding a non-chartered flight to Detroit, and that's before all chartered planes too. We took a couple charters, but when we could fly non-private, we did. So I got my ticket, was standing in line, and got pulled aside and said, you've been traded to St. Louis. Please hold. And it was something I'd never been through, and was stunned, first of all, being young and my second year in the league. Was kind of blown away. I was in almost shock. I didn't know how to react or what to do. And basically from there, they gave me a different flight to Colorado, because St. Louis was playing in Colorado. My girlfriend, who's now my wife, came to the airport with more clothes because I was only going to Detroit for one game, and I got on a flight to go play for another team. So it was one of the weirdest experiences I've had as a pro, and in my life in general. So that's how I found out about it. Just waiting in line, and Rajon Hula pulled me aside to let me know that they had traded me to St. Louis, and the next night I played in Colorado for St. Louis Blues instead of in Detroit for Montreal Canadiens.
So weird.
Yeah.
So weird. And you had to grind it out, the minors.
So grinding.
There was a lot to my question. So
yeah. Sorry, that's all right. Yeah, that's, it's not everybody's story is Austin Matthews and Connor McDavid's, and there was.
I don't know who Austin Matthews is.
Yeah. So it's I was doing what I love, but at the same time, it does become a grind, and you wonder if you're ever going to get back there. But at the end of the day, I'm playing hockey and I'm loving it, and just trying to carve a way back into the NHL. I was there. My experience in St. Louis was not great, but and it was quick to get sent back down. It wasn't easy, and I had 2 years later, my second year in Worcester, I had a baby. My daughter Hannah was born, and it kind of gives you a little bit more. There's more to life than you, and you have another mouth to feed. So it's time to put the boots to the ground and do what you can to get to the NHL.
Love that.
Did you, I was just curious if you had like a coach or, somebody like a mentor during that time that was kind of giving you, I mean, you always want to know your role or what they're expecting. And I'm just curious if anyone had kind of just guided you and said, hey, if you want to get back, this is what you got to do. Somebody that you had in your corner. I had Bruce Boudreau, who's become a friend from his childhood. And, I mean, I was always able to, chat with him to see what was needed and to try to, get up to the NHL.
Yeah, so I think when I was in Worcester, Greg Gilbert was there. He was a young guy, just finished playing, and was a big help in that fashion. I think St. Louis was going through some interesting times with Mike Keenan there as GM and coach, and had an interest. I'll be polite and say an interesting way of doing things.
Oh yeah.
I think when you send kids to the minors and tell them, like, I can't send Brett Hall to the minors, so you're going to the minors, is an interest way to handle things. And and telling kids, hey, you ever heard of Worcester? No, I haven't. Well, that's where you're headed. And just a dick, I guess I can say that on here. But so you're down in the minors and you're trying to do what you think's the right thing. And Gibby was a good ear, and he was a good voice, and he's kind of the one that said to me, hey, you got to make a choice here, and you've got a daughter, and there's more to life than you, and it's time to make a change. And that's when I decided that I was going to try to get back, and was lucky enough to get traded out of there to Milwaukee and Nashville. So that was kind of the start to, hopefully I can get back to the NHL.
So did you make a lot of changes? Sorry, go ahead, Dave.
No, I was going to say, I thought you were going to bring up you guys are both alumni of the blank Ice Cats. And I said blank for a reason.
Yeah. Worcester, the Worcester Ice Cats.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was an interesting place, Worcester. You know what I mean? But I had a good time when I was there, and I actually got to really develop myself as a player there. And so it was, my experience there was, I guess, 50-50. Some was good, some was bad, but I was doing something I loved.
I drive by there almost every weekend now. So my
do you?
my
drive through.
My kids play hockey out that way, and we're constantly driving through Worcester, which is ironic, I guess. But it's been I've learned more about Worcester. They've done a lot of upgrades there. It's a much different city than when we were there. So.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, I just remember all the different color houses, like the bright pink and green, and I was just like, what is happening over here?
Yeah. So, and then my son almost went to a college that's in Worcester, but so I've been through there a bunch of times since, and like you said, good memories, bad memories, but it was fun.
Yeah. Now, what kind of changes did you make, to go up to the NHL? Like, did you start training a different way? Did you do like changes like that?
Yeah. So my biggest change came in my off season. When I finally, got to Buffalo and was in Rochester and met a trainer, Dan Fickner from a company called Want to Get Fast. He was just starting, actually. We were out of his garage, and, we changed the way I was training, which is much more similar to the way they train now, and more functional, more built up, the speed instead of just benching and squatting as much as possible. That was the biggest change to me. I took a lot more care into my off ice activities, training, everything like that. I would say that was my biggest change that I made that, propelled me to the NHL.
See, and Buffalo now, you mentioned Buffalo.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
That poor organization right now. And I got a good friend that plays in Buffalo, Colin Miller, also knows Brooksy. And Miller went from being on LA, got traded to Boston. Then he got drafted by Vegas, which he has the first goal in Vegas history. He makes the Cup Finals, and then he gets traded to Buffalo. It's definitely a roller coaster. And being in Buffalo, I remember being younger, okay, and Miroslav Satan, Maxim Afinogenov, Dominic Hasek. I'm probably Drury. I'm probably forgetting more guys right now at the top of my head.
Christian Ruutu.
I think Mike Greer played there too. I'm just randomly thinking of a name. Like the Buffalo Sabres, that the old jersey is so much better. First off, I want to say I love the black, silver, and red. It's so much cooler than their new ones. No, I know the new ones are kind of cool, but those other ones are better. First off, but that fan base, they got screwed over in 99 to Dallas with having his foot in the crease. No matter what, that shouldn't have been no goal. But either way, Buffalo is such a passionate fan base. I know there's multiple podcast platforms that have talked about Buffalo as a fan base, one in particular, and they talk about how passionate that place would be and are. Never mind what they would be. We already know how they would be if they got there, because that was one loud fan base when I was young. I remember when Toronto would have to go there to play, they're losing. Doesn't matter. You go to Buffalo, it's a hostile environment, especially when they're winning. That horn goes off. You can probably hear the announcer yelling that the goal that he yells. I forget his name. That's very bad. That fan base is passionate about their team and they expect results. Okay. They expect perfection and they haven't had that in quite some time. Okay. And it seems like they get a first overall pick. They have some guys, looks like there's some bright spots and it doesn't work out. Or they might get the first overall pick up, but then the Edmonton Oilers come take it and they draft Connor McDavid. And you get Jack Eichel, who at this time of recording is still on Buffalo, but probably by the time we upload, he's probably going to be gone. So, Buffalo is a hurting city. And when you went there, it was in 01 when you were playing there. And like I mentioned, Stu Barnes, Tim Connolly, I looked at the roster. I cheated when I said that. But there was multiple teams. Lindy Ruff. I know there was a couple teams that were below 500, but you had a lot of good players in there. You had a fan base that cared, of course. And this is your experience playing in Buffalo, and they finally gave you that opportunity to be back in the National Hockey League. So I'm sure you treasure your moments there.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a hardworking town and they love their Bills. They love their Sabres. And for me being so close there, I'm an hour and a half, born and raised from there. So a very special time for me to be there. And like you said, the passion is unbelievable. And, they take things very personally there. So they spend hard-earned money to come watch the games, and they expect hard work and results. And I was lucky enough to be on teams that were very good there. So we had, unbelievable support. And, since Drury and Briere have left, it's been an interesting slide the other way.
It has, unfortunately. And Brooksy, when you obviously, we know Miller that plays in Buffalo. It's not a fun environment right now. And he didn't say that. I'm going to file. Colin never said that, so I'm not quoting Millsy. I know if he hears this and he'll text me. No, he talks great things about Buffalo, as he should. But players outside of Buffalo probably don't talk as positive, and us being media guys, we can talk that freely, and it's not an enjoyable environment. But as Rory just touched on, since the history of the early 2000s and late 90s for Buffalo, it's not the same.
Yeah, there's
Dave,
yeah.
No, I was just going to say, Dave doesn't even know this, but I was a season ticket holder to the Sabres. My dad used to print the programs for the Sabres. So that's, that's my tie. That was my team as a kid and growing up. And I remember the old arena because, Rory would probably remember this too. Whenever there was a body check in that town, in that old arena, the glass would move more than anywhere else in the world. It was a great place to watch a hockey game down below because you were going to get crushed by the boards.
If you sat up top, you almost sat over the boards. They had railings that kept you back in the upper section. So it was I was lucky enough when I was in Montreal to play in the old Odd. I got to play in a lot of the old buildings too. That was one of the highlights of my career, to be able to play in some of those old buildings. So, but yeah, Buffalo. They were rough and tumble. They were hardworking, and the fans there, they loved it.
See, and then after Buffalo, okay, there was the Vancouver Canucks. Okay, and this is going to segue us into one of the stories you said that we were going to touch on. So after Buffalo, I believe you signed in Vancouver, right, as a free agent?
Yes.
Yeah, so you signed there as a free agent. And I'm sure you ensured that you were going to be a guy who was playing depth guy, and I think you played almost 60 around that point in the season. And there was the Allstar game that year, okay? And now this is the most interesting thing, because I actually remember this, okay? I was 15 at the time. I'm sorry to make anyone maybe feel a bit older, but I was 15 at the time. And you were 23,000 votes shy, apparently. Between Nicholas Lindstrom was in second, and you had Scott Niedermeyer, who was first with apparently 591,000 votes. But people were going around wearing Rory Fitzpatrick T-shirts. Like I think it was "Vote for Rory" is what they said on it. Like you go to Vancouver, and you're in another Canadian city that is really passionate, and when they don't win, they riot, literally. I'm sure we all remember that. So the experience in Vancouver and that All-Star game, give our listeners that whole background story, if you can, of how that all happened, what happened. And let me say right now that it's bullshit that you didn't get in, and I think it was rigged. I won't let you say that also.
So, obviously signing in another Canadian city was great. I'd never been out west for that, extended time. So, got out there to, a beautiful city, great place to live, and a great place to play hockey. So I was actually injured at the time. I had broken my heel, and I got a call from I think my brother back home, and he said, are you aware of this vote for Rory or anything with the All-Star game? And I said no. I think social media was just starting to blow up, and I was not on any of it. So I just basically let it go, didn't think another thing of it. And I was in the locker room one day, and Marcus Naslund came up to me and he said, "Hey, my friends from Sweden are calling me, asking me about the vote for Rory thing." And I said, I don't know anything about this. And he said, "Okay." And from the speed of it from that was incredible. I think 2 days, and I'm not even playing at the time. I'm out on injured reserve, and my media guy says, "Hey, we're getting a lot of questions about this. Do you mind to take a few questions? It'll be done. Take the questions. It'll be over." And I said, "Yeah." I said, "I'm not really familiar with what's going on, but I'll answer what I can." I walked into an absolute packed locker room full of media from all over the place, and guys on the team were, like, "What the hell's going on here? Like, what did you do?" And answered the questions that I could, and the next day it was national news all across Canada and all across the U.S. and from there it snowballed. It was a monster that just kept going, and I didn't pay much attention to it, and until I had to, and then I started playing again. And every city we went to, the media was waiting and people were waiting, and for the first couple months it was very positive. It was fun, and then it started to get a little bit negative, and not so much fun. I guess that's your 15 minutes of fame comes crashing down. But playing in a city like Vancouver, I'm at the store at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning because my kid is sick, and I have some lady in there asking me about the vote for Rory thing. So I guess it's the closest I'll be to a Hollywood celebrity or anything like that. But yeah, the whole experience was, like I said, very positive in the beginning. I had, I'd get to a city. I can remember getting to Boston, and I played with Doug Huda here in Rochester. And he said, he saw me come in the arena, and he grabbed me. And next thing you know, I'm sitting in their coach's office in Boston, and they're kind of asking me about it. And, they said, "You don't really have anything to do with this?" I said, "No, absolutely nothing." And they said, well, we just voted for you. So, players on the ice would say, "Hey, voted for you," stuff like that. So like I said, it was very positive. Then it got to the point where, a few big names came out and kind of shit talked it a little bit, and gave, other people the comfort to come out and say some negative things about it. And then it was, that's right when I was done with it. And, of course they made changes to the voting to keep me out, which was at the time fine for me. I'd been asked by a couple TV stations to go down, and they were going to pay me to go down and do sideline reporting type things. And at that time, I was completely worn out from it. And
sure.
and like I said, when it became negative, and people jumped on, and social media is absolutely vicious.
Oh God.
It was good for me to end it. It was something that I participated into a level that I had to through the Canucks wanted me to, be cordial about it. And, because it was such big news and it was, it benefited the NHL. It got them,
Yep.
a lot of attention. And so I played along. And then once it started getting negative, I, immediately wanted it to be over. But it's one of the most common questions I get. And
I bet.
sometimes I say my name and people look at me a little weird and they're like, wait a minute, are you and I say, yep, that's me. So amazing story. It was, like I said, the start of social media and the power of it. And obviously it came back a couple of years later with John Scott, and he made out a lot better than I did. He got to go, and
and they gave him money.
And
they all gave him money.
Everybody gave him money. So, I took the beating, and I got my
You paved the way for John Scott there.
That's right. So he got to go, and
he showed up. It was the best I'd seen him play.
Yeah, exactly. I think it showed that, you get, I'm a journeyman, I'm a 6th or 7th defenseman, but, at the end of the day, you're one of, 700 players. So there's nobody up there that's a, terrible hockey player. So I think, it was good to see him go and have success.
You know what? I literally find it so amazing how there's still politics even when you get up to the National Hockey League. And I'm not going to sit here and bitch about politics in any kind of way, but
please don't.
No, I won't. But the vote for imagine what if Instagram was a thing back then. You not saying you don't have a large following, because obviously people know who you are, but imagine the amount of followers you would have gained from that. You'd be probably in the absolute millions for that right now on Instagram, because people follow anything and for that. And I think you would have got in. If that was today, you would have got in 100%.
Yeah, so I could have been an influencer instead of working.
Yeah, exactly. Collecting money.
Yeah, it could have been promoting brands. But yeah, I think it was, the NHL had no idea how to react to it. I think at the end of the day, they weren't really sure what to do with it.
Yep.
And, not a Gary Bettman fan. So
a lot of people aren't.
Yeah. So, I think the way that they handled it probably was not the best. And, it didn't do anything to help me. That's for sure, the way they handled it. And, but again, it came out again with John Scott. So hopefully my experience helped his experience and helped them deal with, that.
Oh, he's reaping the benefits. He went through the mud. Yeah, 100% he is. He still is. Yeah. Now, Vancouver happened, and after Vancouver came Philadelphia, Broad Street Bullies, and I had the luxury of meeting Reggie Leach. He was coach of a team that I played against in my junior day, and very interesting character, of course. I'll flat out say that about Reggie Leach. I don't think he's going to listen. I don't know if he's a follower or not, but he when he was a part of Philadelphia in the 70s, that team was a tough team. Okay. There's not a lot of teams. We think of tough teams in the National Hockey League. That's probably the first that would come to mind, is the Reggie Leach area, the Broad Street Bullies. Right. But you played in Philly, the city of brotherly love. And there's yet another fan base that, they chant USA a lot there, and half their team's Canadian right now. Flat out just point that out. But, there's a fan base that gets into her, gets loud. And when you're there in 07, 08, when I looked at, I think Mike Richards was just starting out. Jeff Carter was just starting out potentially. I'm not too sure. Obviously a former Greyhound. There was Joffrey Lupul, who has been known as the best looking guy in the National Hockey League. Apparently when he was playing, he was obviously the best injured guy all the time too. May I say, Daniel Briere, you had familiarity with him in Buffalo. Darian Hatcher, there's a legendary name, tough guy. So I've noted a couple guys down, but you have a team that did pretty good, obviously, in the season. And when you were there, you played, I think it was you dressed, I know it was about 20 some games or so, but playing in Buffalo playing in Philadelphia, my apologies, is a different environment than any other team that you played for, I would say.
Yeah. Playing there and living there is a whole different world. I went from Vancouver where it was no worries to, get the fuck out of my way. You're going only 80 miles per hour and on a side street. So, but the fans there are absolutely crazy, whether you're visiting or home. I think it's a when you put on that jersey, you kind of feel a little bit tougher, a little bit of obligation to play a certain way. And, they are an interesting breed out there, but they love their team. And if you're winning, it's really a great place to play. And it's great because teams don't want to play there. So you have an immediate advantage when teams come in. And, I don't know how it is so much with the league now, but, I remember pulling in there with some of those lineups that they had in my younger days. And, I got to play in that spectrum against, Eric Lindros and Johnny Leclerc and Joel Otto. And, you're playing against everybody that's over 6 foot tall on a sheet of ice that's, half the size of what they are today. So amazing city to play in if you're winning, and scary city to play in if you're losing.
See, and Brooksy, like Riley Cote was on that team. I think Riley, and Riley is somebody that I'll mention that's really a big advocate right now too for, I believe it's correct me if I'm wrong, concussions, and of course marijuana, like obviously cannabis. Sorry, there we go, cannabis advocate. There it is, came to my mind. And there's some players like that you've played with, like Riley, and guys that have done, like we mentioned at the top, have done different things. But Riley, there's somebody that has done pretty good for himself after, but it's because of his role as a hockey player. And we talk about this a lot on this show, especially with guests that have stopped playing. You compare the game to what it was. It's grown every decade's different. All right. Every decade is different. You look at the 70s compared to the 80s, goalies got better, players got better. Like if McDavid played in the 80s right now, no offense to Gretzky, I think McDavid probably get 300 points because of the way he's built and the way it's built for modern hockey. And it is a better, the faster game than what it was. But I don't think the game today is not as close to being as tough as it was. Players are more soft, and the two-way type players that I would say Brooksy scores goals in the corners, gets feisty. Those type of players now are like Zach Hyman's, where they're like playing on top lines, getting 30 goals and can score. So I think if you take a lot of teams that you played on in the 90s and thousands and put it up to teams now, you guys would probably bulldoze them out of the rink, and they'd probably all be injured because they wouldn't be able to keep up with the toughness of the game. So are you a fan of what the game was, or are you a fan of what it is now, or are you just kind of open with it, saying, it just grew, who cares?
Yeah, no, I think somewhere in the middle of that is probably where it belongs, in my opinion. I think there's a level of grit and toughness that make hockey what it is. And, I think that, a hit that's hard shouldn't be penalized just because it's hard.
Yeah.
And I feel that that's kind of the way that's gone. And I understand the safety of it and, understanding head injuries much better. But, I've been involved with games that are very physical, extremely fast, that didn't have fights in them. And I can tell you that those are some of the best games, and the fans are super into it. And, those were scarier, more scary sometimes in the games with a bunch of fights in it, because, you have, someone 6'4" come flying in on you, and, going back to get the puck, you were going to take it. And, but yeah, I think somewhere in the middle of where it is now and where it was would be the best possible game for me to watch and play and enjoy. I just think, sometimes today, I watch my, kids' games, and some of the penalties that are called seem to be just ridiculous. Yeah. It's just, you wait to see what the result of the hit is instead of what the actual hit was. And, an arm goes up when the boards sound too loud. And, again, understand the whole head injury thing. But, I think that, that it needs to, hockey's hockey, and,
Right.
Hockey players are different.
Well, yeah. Well, I remember like back in the day, especially for yourself being a D man, as a forward, I was pretty fast forward that loved to hit. And I remember, when you had that touch icing, the amount of times that I was able to just crush the defenseman. And, looking back, I can't imagine what that feeling is like. And nowadays these guys won't ever feel it. And it's probably a good thing about that. But I just remember back in the day, some of those hits were so dangerous. And because you're both going so fast to get to that puck.
Yeah, like I said, when I played junior, part of our practices were taught to hold up the forechecker, and then they took that out of the game. And when they took that out of the game, you got a Chris Neal.
Safety was gone.
Yeah, it was completely gone. And you dump the puck in from the red line, and players that can skate and are tough are coming in, and their one job is to hit you. There was no puck in play on those plays. So it was amazing that there wasn't more serious injuries. But yeah, being a defenseman back in those days was not a fun time. And I sent a highlight to one of my friends whose son is now getting a chance to play in the NHL, and said, "Hey, this is when I played, a little bit different than now." So he wrote back, "Holy cow," because you don't think of it if you're not involved with the game. But being a D-man back then was much different.
It is. It's like now you don't get taught to hit until Bantam, I believe. Yeah. And we got taught. I think we're even though a little bit of an age gap. I got taught in novice, I believe, is when I got taught for hitting. I'm sure it was pretty similar for both yourselves. But imagine if I didn't learn to hit, Brooksy, if you didn't learn to hit, Rory, if you didn't learn to hit to Bantam, and then you start hitting right away, you're bigger. You're not going to learn properly. I'm a hugely against that being so late. Okay, it's like, then why do we play minor football then? Why do kids play football then if there's no body contact? Football is a more dangerous head contact sport than hockey is. Okay, and it's just the hitting's not taught as properly. I don't think the coaches are as taught. And I know we've kind of segued from talking about your playing career a little bit here, but this is always a good topic to dive about to get your take on it. I'm always interested to see players that have stopped playing, how they look at the game today and what they think. And I'm sure you sit down in front of the television, you see some calls. You said you were a Bruins fan. I'm sure you watch the Bruins, and you see a tough team. Bruins are a tough team night in, night out. Imagine if they could do clutch and grab, the Bruins would be one of the best teams in the NHL for that, because they're strong, they're big, they can score goals. But now some players can't be that effective. Zdeno Chara, 6'9" on off skates. He's over 7 feet on skates. Doesn't have any wheels on the guy. Okay, but he's still playing. Okay, but imagine if he did play in the 90s. Okay, and he was way more effective then, because of how the rules have changed. And I'm just not a fan of how it's changed that way. I love the speed, though. Yeah. I love seeing the speed in the game and the skill come out, but I would love to still see that get dirtier in the corners, those harder hits. Like, you can change the momentum in a game with that one hit, that one fight, and fights still happen, but it's not the same.
Yeah, I think there's areas of the ice that level of physicality is necessary, and could still be safe and effective in today's game. And I think that's where taking it out really hurts the game. So, yeah. I also think there's some players in the league today that are tough guys, and they're probably way tougher than I ever was. But I think their game would have been totally different 15 years ago. I don't think they would have been quite as tough and effective as they are in today's game.
I've said it before, Brooksy. I said if Ryan Reeves was still playing when guys like the bigger tough guys are playing, I don't think he'd be the toughest guy in the league. I know he wouldn't be able to fight Derek Bugard. But before we go to the conclusion, I want to make sure I touch on one thing more when you played before we wrap up. Your retirement. Okay, when you officially said that I'm hanging up the skates, I'm going to other chapters in my life, how did that decision go for you? I imagine that was hard. Doesn't matter what level you play at or how long you play. When you know that that's the last moment that you're touching off the ice of competitive hockey, it was probably so emotional for you to come to that decision. Did you know after your last season that was what you were going to do, or what was the whole retirement kind of scope for you when you knew that was it?
Yeah. So after I had played my last game in Philadelphia in the NHL, I went down to the Phantoms, and finished in the playoffs down there. And at that time, I decided that, I'd go home and play for the Rochester Americans and kind of finish up my career there back home. So I knew I was going to be, retiring, one way or another after I was done in Rochester. So, I had some time to prepare for it. But again, that last season was, it's tough. You're going to places and doing things that you've been doing your whole life, kind of, thinking, man, I'm not going to be doing this next year. So it was tough. I think I had some time to prepare for it. And, my family's great and, helped me through that. And, I was able to get right into it. My kids were playing hockey, so I was at the rink my first couple of years after retirement every day anyway. So it wasn't like a dead stop from the game for me. I know there's people that have a lot of trouble with it, and I don't think I had trouble with it, other than it was just tough to end something that I love to do and have been doing for so long.
Yeah, it's something you think you can prepare for, but there's no preparing for when you decide to end it, because it's so much more than just the game when you stop playing.
Yeah, there's like I said, that there's so much more, like you said, there's so much more than the game too. I mean, it's going in the locker room and you have 20 friends and 20 guys, and there's not any other business that you can get that sort of camaraderie with that you can in a locker room and with 20 guys that you go out and battle with every night. So I could easily stop playing, but going to that rink every day was probably the biggest adjustment, more than getting on the ice every day.
So emotional. All time is undefeated. It always comes and goes, right? You get older, things happen. It's literally amazing. Yeah. Now, getting to the conclusion part of the show, Rory, and as I've been sitting here, people may have been seeing me or hearing me take sips. I'm going to do a little product ad placement here. Northern Superior Brewing Company. Delicious beer. Okay, it's based in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. If you're in the Soo, great new patio. The tap room at Northern Superior, it's called. If you're at a liquor store nearby in Ontario, I don't believe it's hit anything in the States yet, but if it does, Rory, or anyone in the States, check out Northern Superior home craft beer. It's delicious. And of course, our special edition upload brought to you by Little Caesars Pizza. Special shout out to Mike Flamia and Little Caesars Pizza here in the Soo in particular. They love the show. And even I got $20 gift certificates. So for people that are interested in getting one of these, just comment below and I will give you those details. Now, when I'm done doing product ad placements, getting to the bonus question round, okay? This is where myself and Brooksy, Rory, ask one question that's out of the blue. And it's basically a one sentence, one word answer, unless you want to get into a story about it. We've had both. And I'm actually going to let Brooksy go first on his question. I'm going to go usually the best first. The voters have said that Brooksy's has the best questions at the end here. So you know what? I'll let everyone enjoy the first one to be the best one.
The pressure. Hey, it's been my welcome back pressure.
Yeah.
No, Roy, I just want to ask you, if there's somebody that has had some influence on your career from a young that you just want to show the respect, that kind of took you under their wing and that, kind of, made you into the hockey player and the man that you are today.
My dad.
Nice. Yeah. See, that's the best. See, that's the best answer we've had, and it's the shortest one.
Yeah. Yeah. Straight to it.
Straight to it. Yeah. All right. Yeah. So mine, I'll go with asking a two-parter short one. Yes, I got to go two. If you had to choose one D partner, you get to suit up one more game in the National Hockey League, and it's for Toronto in Game 7 of Stanley Cup Finals. Okay. Who's your?
So in other words, it'll never happen.
You caught on to that. But who is the D partner that you are choosing? And, if there was any other stories you wanted to get to, I want to make sure that after you answer that, if you want to give a plug or shout out to anybody or anything additional where people could follow you, or just even a story that maybe you haven't told that's hilarious that you want to do, I want to give you the floor. So that was the second part. My question, then the floor is yours.
Is it a partner I had to play with or anybody?
Good question. Partner you played with. Sure.
Oh, man.
If you didn't play with someone to be easy, I'm sure you'd be easier.
I was going to say Ray Bork. As far as D-men that I played with, I'll say Neil Martin, old Sault Ste. Marie Greyhound, played with him in
Oh,
Sudbury. Just because you
okay.
might be listening to the show. That's the only reason I'm saying.
Nice.
I like that. I like that. For the floor, if you want to tell a story that you haven't been able to, that we didn't touch on, or if you wanted to plug anything, maybe any friends that are running businesses. Best thing about any partners we have, I tell them that I run my show the way I want to. So that's the whole point of this. We still want you to give love to anybody if you want, or go free. If you have a story that you wanted to tell that's absolutely R-rated, go ahead. I want to give you the floor for the next little bit here until you're done.
That's what you guys want, right? I'll plug all my Sudbury guys. Lots of them live down in Barrie, Ontario. Sean Venedam runs Highway 400, I think it's called 400 Source for Sports. I'm going to say that wrong, so it's probably a bad plug, but he's down in Barrie. So if you're in Barrie and you need your skate sharpened or equipment, stop by and see him. So no, I think all my stories are out there. I think I don't have too many crazy ones that I want to,
absolutely.
the ones I can't tell. Yeah, I can't tell some of them, and then the ones I can tell are already out there. So
so when I come down to the States, we'll have a beer and you can tell it.
There you go.
With the cameras off. It's just amazing overall. And I find it, fascinating that, it's amazing how you start somewhere like you did in Sudbury, and then you just move on to get drafted, and then you play the National Hockey League, the American Hockey League, you get into coaching. It's all in all just fun. And speaking of fun, you played in the World Juniors. I've had a few friends that have had the opportunity to play in the World Juniors, and you played with guys like Adam Denmarsh on that team. I looked up the roster. I think Bates Battaglia was also on that team. There's a few other guys on that squad. And realistically, if you get onto the World Juniors, the odds of you making the NHL are a little bit stronger. And that's not like for sure, but like in terms of getting drafted, if you haven't been drafted yet, of course, and just the development, the exposure of that is obviously priceless. But to put on the crest that you're able to for the United States, obviously we're Canadian. Okay. So there's a little difference there. But you know what, to wear a jersey that is at the international level for your country, doesn't matter what country you're representing, it's rewarding.
Absolutely. I think it was a huge honor. And again, we have, the US, they don't necessarily care for when guys go up north, but the coach that year was across the bridge from you guys there at Lake State. Had seen me play against the Sioux several times, so I had a little advantage there to make the team, and he had seen me play. So, but yeah, anytime you get to play for your country is super special, no matter what country you're from. And obviously, playing in Canada that year was great in Red Deer, Alberta, and unfortunately or fortunately, whatever country you're from, the lockout was that year. So I think Canada had 11 players that immediately went to the NHL as soon as the lockout was over in January. So they were an NHL team to play against, and easily won the gold medal that year. So it was a great experience all over, and obviously Red Deer was a great place to have it, and a lot of fun actually when the tournament was over. So it was great to be able to hang out with players from different countries and have a little fun after the tournament was over.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing. Like it's I was fortunate enough to play for Canada as well. Like but I didn't play World Juniors. But it's kind of this feeling that you have when you put that jersey on for your country. And I know you touched on it a little bit, but it's something you really can't truly explain unless you're living it yourself, because you're sitting there. And I remember just sitting there right before I put it on. I just had this overwhelming feeling of like, holy moly, like this is, it just like bring the country on your back, and you get some extra energy, some extra butterflies. It's pretty wild.
It really is. It's a special time. And, I think that, being able to put on that USA on the front of my chest was definitely a part of my career that I'll never forget. And to be able to represent your country and do it in a sport you love is fantastic. And, having been in Canada, a year or two prior to the World Juniors, you see how special it is in Canada. So,
yep.
It's really spread here in the US over the last couple of years with success as well. So it's definitely becoming a bigger deal down here. But for Canada, it really is, a time of year where, the country comes together, rallying around 17 to 20-year-old kids. And it's, I knew that going in, which made, playing for the U.S. even more special that year.
USA, you know what? We're either if you want to call us brothers or sisters because we're neighbors, whatever you want to call us.
Yeah.
We definitely got to respect the talent that we both generate on that ice for hockey and sports in general. I would say that we're a bit behind in soccer though, but we're not talking soccer here. Rory, I want to say thank you very much for taking the time. We had to take some time at the beginning because Brooksy had to learn Zoom, and of course. And, we had a fun time talking about everything that we could. I'm sure there's even more things that we can get into, and hopefully sometime down the road we can have you back on. So I want to say thank you for taking the time. Brooksy, before he responds.
Yeah, thanks guys. I hope you get released up there pretty soon.
Yeah, so. I just want to thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Yeah. Good luck to you guys up there. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All the best.
Vote for Rory. That's how I'll end it. So thank you again to Rory Fitzpatrick and to Brendan Brooks, the co-host of our special edition uploads. I want to say thank you to all of our listeners. Make sure you hit like, follow, and subscribe. Yes, I got to say that. Also check out our website, thegamesportshow.com, and also check out the Game Entertainment and Media. We got the YouTube channel. We got the sources. You can search us up, locate us. We got product placement on these shows too. The Orange Spirit Brewing Company, Little Caesars Pizza. We also got a list of sponsors on our website as well, which again, thegamesportshow.com, or you can check out all the editions on YouTube with the Game Entertainment and Media or through Apple, Spotify. You can find us anywhere. Okay. You can't get rid of our voices. You hear us all over the place. Us people here in Sault Ste. Marie, locally based, we don't shut up. And I don't mean that in a rude way. So on behalf of the Game Sports Show and the Game Entertainment Media, again, for the third time, thank you to Rory and to the listeners. We hope everyone has a good rest of their day, night, whatever time you listen to this. And I'm here to remind you, keep your stick on the ice, swing your bats, catch your touchdowns, during your threes, and shoot your shots. Booyah.